people are saying that in this time of great uncertainty. And over the last week or so, I've been like really leaning into that phrase and recognizing, yeah, like it's always been uncertain. We just had this facade that we thought we knew. Like it's
Yeah.
always been this way. There's always been all this uncertainty happening. Like the jobs that we thought we had that were certain. My friends who 3 months ago were making six figures and today are on unemployment. It's always been uncertain. And so I think has lifted that veil for us a little bit to help us really be more present in the moment with what is happening now. Like we almost don't have the opportunity right now to even think about, oh, what's going to happen in the future because we don't know. Like we don't know when things are going to be quote unquote back to whatever we think it's going to be. And so what we're being required to do is say, okay, given what is happening now, how do I want to show up? And that has been for me, that was the biggest turning point for me. I mentioned to you, I have been thinking a lot about the story of Noah's Ark
Yes.
and the
Oh, I'd
story
love
from the
to share
Bible.
this.
Yeah, and regardless of what religion or spiritual practices, or I think most of us are familiar with this story of Noah's Ark. And so I think there's such an incredible teaching from this because what happens in Noah's Ark, right, is there's this great flood coming and then people are denying it and pretending it doesn't exist and clinging on to their old lives. And then at the same time, there's this ark where in the ark, you're choosing what stays and what's getting left behind. And I feel like right now we are moving into a brand new dawn of society. And we as individuals and as a collective are choosing every day what stays and what gets left behind. And the thing is, I started thinking about
Mm.
that because a lot of people in my community were often saying, well, when things get back to normal. And I was like, y'all, like we're not going back. Like it's not gonna be that again.
Yeah, that's
You
there's no more normal like that. Yeah.
no, it's now. And so we're choosing what we're bringing with us into this new normal. And to be really, it's a great opportunity to be compassionately but radically honest with ourselves. When we look at our old lives from the past, so many people are saying, I want to get back. And I'm like, how much of that was actually working for us? Like, do you really want to go back to all that? Or there's some things that need to get shed to make space for the new? Like our schools in the United States having shootings every month, which ended with COVID, obviously, because there's no school.
Yeah.
The things that are happening with gun violence, just all the different things that are happening in the world with pollution and environmental. There's so much that we're getting to see how we get to choose what comes on the ark and what gets left behind. So that feels like a really big and important lesson for me during this time.
Yeah. So, since you mentioned that, what are you leaving behind?
Oh, that's a really good question. Okay.
And I've got
So,
myself that too. What are you leaving behind?
yeah, that's a really good question. I'm going to tell you one of the things that I'm leaving behind.
Okay.
So for my entire life, I have been a chronic overachiever. Chronic, and I think a lot of people can relate to this.
Mhm.
We adapt to our trauma and the ways we grow up in so many different ways. And I grew up with a lot of love in my family. My parents and I are so close, but in a home with literally with gunshot holes on the outside of our house. And, growing up, you adapt to that in some way. So for me, my adaptation was I'm going to be really smart. I'm going to achieve everything. I'm going to get out of here. And I'm so grateful that I did. I ended up getting a full ride academic scholarship to go to UCLA and, having this life that looked on the outside the way that I thought it should look. But on the inside, recognizing that I was still miserable. And I realized this at 19, more than a decade ago. And that's what brought me to these practices. And I think what this moment is teaching me that's kind of an add-on to that, or the shift there, is for my whole life I've been so busy. And for the first time for months at a time, for a couple months, I haven't been that busy. And guess what? I've made just as much impact. I'm taking such better care of myself. I'm
Mhm.
resting, I'm sleeping, my creativity is blossoming in a whole new way. So, what I'm taking with me is this sense of deep, radical self care where I'm saying no to things. where I'm resting, where I'm cooking for myself more, and not feeling like I have to constantly overfunction and overachieve just to feel successful. For me right now, success sometimes during COVID has been, did you take a shower today, Justin? Yes. Okay. Win. Like you're good.
Double win.
So
Check it off.
yeah,
Took a
yeah,
shot. Check it off. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's really interesting. What are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to? If you folks who are tuning in, welcome. We're with Justin Michael Williams, this phenomenal change agent. What are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to? What are you leaving behind? Feel free to leave some comments and questions for Justin, and I will field them and direct them toward Justin. You mentioned growing up with gunshot holes outside of your home. And so that, it sounds like by what you said, that truly influenced the direction of the path that you took toward being an achiever. Was there a moment during that time where it something like clicked in you where you thought, okay, I am going a completely, I mean, I'm just curious, like as a youth in
yeah.
that situation, like what was going on for you?
So, I think for me, Greg, so growing up, for me, I was in the closet, knew I was gay at a very young age, queer, like, whatever. I wasn't using those, that was an insult back then, but at a very young age and hiding in the closet. And really every day in my own home and everywhere in my life, practicing being somebody that I wasn't to be loved and accepted and validated. At school, I got bullied a lot. At home, it wasn't accepted. There was all that context, plus the trauma, plus being Black, plus the being, in a lower socioeconomic status. And so for me, particularly though, I think it came from an adaptation of going, how can I be loved? And I remember being a little kid when I would get good grades or when I would do something really good or really smart or something in school, that was when I would get celebrated and praised and not teased or not ridiculed or judged or critiqued. And so I think I recognized subconsciously, like, oh, this is what I have to do to be loved. And, I wish it was some more virtuous reason than that. But I think that's what started me on this path of being the golden child in my family or the one who was always smart and achieving, because it was my way of trying to find love in my family. And I think we all have these things that we've done. And luckily my adaptation looked a little healthier than, some other people. And, uh, but for me, I'll tell you the most transformative moment for me. When I was 14, I got to high school and they had a club. I rarely tell this story, but this is a really important one. So they had that little fair where all the clubs on campus kind of are trying to get new members. And they had a
Yes,
club.
yes,
You know what I'm talking about? So
yeah.
they had a club called the European Travel Club. And I walk up to this booth and there's like four little white ladies there. And I'm like, what is this? And they're like, well, we're a club and we raise money and we go to Europe every other year with the school. And I'm like, I want to join. So, mind you, no one in my family had ever been out of the country. No one in my family had ever had a passport. No, nothing. I'd never been on an airplane, like nothing like this. So I joined this club and I go home to my mom and my family and I'm like, I joined the European Travel Club. And I think they're like, oh, cool, sure, kind of thing. And, but supportive, but still like, sure. So I start washing cars, selling candy, like doing everything that I could to raise this money to go to Europe. And my family had said, if you raise the $3,000 that it takes to go, we'll double it. And I think they're probably thinking, there's no way this kid's going to raise $3,000. Well, guess what? Mr. Overachiever here raised $3,000. And the next year,
Wow.
I went to Europe for 35 days alone with
When you're
no parents, 15,
15 years old.
15.
Good for you.
And
Wow.
yeah, and so it wasn't by myself, but with a group of students, a few from my school, from other schools, to 6 countries. And when I came back from that trip, I was a completely different kid. And this is why working with youth for me right now is so essential and so important. I've been working with youth a ton to bring spiritual teachings and this stuff to them because I had the chance and the privilege of going to Europe. There's kids here in Los Angeles who live in LA and have never been to the beach. And so, how can we take them to this space of possibility, what Dan Siegel calls the plane of possibility,
Mhm.
inside themselves, so they can see a life that's bigger than them, than their circumstances? And that's what happened for me. And really, that's one of my biggest missions as I bring these teachings into underserved communities, is to show people that their possibilities are bigger than their circumstances.
Hmm. I love that. That's also tweetable. Your possibilities are bigger than your circumstances.
Tweetable.
I kind of stole that a little. I think from I think Oprah does that.
Oprah does say that. She does say that's a tweetable.
Tweetable. Um, so thank you, Oprah, wherever you are. You've always wanted to be involved in music, but from my understanding, you were bullied and teased and abused, and you let go of that dream. But was there one event that sort of led you to reclaim your dream?
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
help from
So
your grandmother, am I right?
yeah, yeah. This is one of the most impactful moments and stories that I can tell today. So several years ago, my grandmother, who I was very, very close to, we in my family we call her Baka. That's what we called her in my family, for no good reason. Basically, I was a really weird little kid, and you know how when you teach kids how to say words, so my family was trying to teach me to say grandma, and they would go say grand, and I would say grand, and they would go say ma, and I would say ma, and they would go now say grandma, and I would go Baka, and so she became Baka just like that. And several years ago, my Baka got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer,
Oh,
and the doctors told her she had a couple months to live. And we were so close. She was like one of the closest people to me, her and my mother. And when this happened, it was a huge shock to our whole family. She was 67, which I consider young. I have friends who are 67, and so I flew home to the Bay Area to be with her. I walked into her house, and right away, she pulled me into the room, closed the door, and asked me a question that literally changed the trajectory of my whole life. She said, "If you were in my shoes and you knew you were going to die in 2 months, what would you do?" And I look at her like, "What? What are you even talking about?" She said, "Get quiet, get still, do that meditation thing you're always talking about.
hmm.
And if you were in my shoes and you knew you were going to die in 2 months, what would you do?" And I closed my eyes, and this well of emotion just like tried to erupt out of me, but I couldn't cry because when I was a kid, everybody said faggots, only faggots cry, and you can't cry. And I just blurted out, I would quit every single thing that I'm doing, and I would record an album. I would do music. And the thing is, I'd always wanted to do music since I was a little boy. But again, like all the kids at school teasing me, the way that I grew up, wanting to make money and do something successful and do something practical, I stopped myself and let that dream die. And I think we all have these things. We all have these dreams and these ideas, and we close our eyes and we can see these lives that we haven't started living yet. And we stop ourselves because we're too fat, or we're too old, or we're too ugly, or we're too gay, or we're too black, or we should have started before we had kids, or blah, all the reasons why we stop ourselves. And we just give up. But luckily, the dream, I find, this is one thing that I love from Elizabeth Gilbert, like, and actually the Alchemist. The dream doesn't give up on us. It just is waiting for us to turn toward it,
Mm.
And so in that moment was my turning back toward. And my grandma looked at me and she said, I know, because when you were a kid, this is what we all knew you loved and we all knew you were born to be. But you based your entire life on this desire to get out of here. Your whole life was based on that. And now it's your time to fly. And so woke up, the dream, not easily, moving through lots of resistance, taking voice lessons, singing lessons, guitar lessons, piano lessons, and then I put out an album. And it was interesting because I ended up going to school at UCLA for marketing because I didn't want to go for music because it wasn't as practical. And I then had started a marketing company and was doing this whole thing. And so when I started doing music and realized that I was putting out an album, at first I was resentful that I hadn't started music sooner, because I was like, wow, had I started earlier, I'd be so much better. But then my album ended up charting on the top 20 of
That's it.
iTunes as an independent artist. Literally, it was Taylor Swift, Britney Spears, and then me on the charts. And the reason that happened was because of my marketing experience. And so in that moment, I had this reckoning and this realization, and I think this is for all of us, that no experience is wasted. You have not waited too long. But the thing is it's time to turn toward your dream and start now. This is one of those things we could bring on the arc. What is wanting to be birthed through us? And start now. Even little baby steps. For me, it wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna do music, I'm putting out an album. It was like a 4-year journey. It started with me singing mantras, just getting used to being comfortable with my voice again, And so anyways, and
Beautiful.
now we're here.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine it was quite a wonderful experience to debut in the top 20 with, Britney Spears next to you and Taylor Swift next to you. And,
I was screaming
yeah.
like a little girl.
Yes, right. I'm going to be fielding some questions from Justin in a second. So if you have some, feel free to list those folks. And thank you for tuning in. We're with Justin Michael Williams. Uh, I love that your spiritual curiosity filters into your work. Um, I have a sense of why that's important to you, but maybe you can articulate why that's important for you to do.
Yeah, so for me, it's the glue. Like my spirituality is the glue that holds my entire life together and runs through, everything. It's an essential, for me. And to be honest with you, when I first started doing everything, I would have never imagined, like, if I had gone to a psychic a decade ago and someone would say, a decade from now, which is when I first started going to Esalen, by the way. I went to Esalen. I'm 32 now. I went to Esalen for the first time when I was 20, I think. So if someone would have told me, you're going to be considered a spiritual teacher, a psychic told me that, I would have been like, give me my money back. There's no way, because that wasn't really my intention. But what happened was people would always ask me, how did you accomplish this? How is it that your life is changing? How is this that you've overcome these odds? And I would always have to return to the practices, because I could give them the tangible, the business stuff or the marketing things, but all that stuff falls flat if your internal alignment is not there.
That's
And so I started just sharing about mindfulness and about meditation and the practices that I learned from my teacher, Lauren Roche, who I love so much, who was Esalen faculty for a very long time. And then slowly it just started to build, and I realized, wow, I think with my youth, but also how early I started and my life experience, I have something important to share from an important perspective. And so I just continue to share what works for me and hopefully inspiring people to find what works for them as well.
mm. Well, it's beautiful, and I know that you have. I think your guitar right there. Am I not? Yeah, you do.
You
You
told me
have
to be
it. You have
ready.
it. So I believe Justin is going to grace us with his creativity and his
All right,
beautiful voice. So,
we'll do a song.
so
It's only for Esalen because, as any musician listening will know, singing before noon is a no-no. But
singing
we're
before
doing
noon
it.
is a no-no. No.
Because your voice has to warm up, but I did. So I'd love to offer this song to us today, um,
Thank you.
as a really as a prayer or an intention for all of us. And before we begin, for everybody listening, if you wouldn't mind joining me, if it feels comfortable to you, to just close your eyes for a moment and place a hand over your heart and then the other hand on top of that. And I want you for a moment to imagine a childhood version of yourself. Childhood version of yourself at any age. Just trust what comes up for you, even if the image is unclear. And notice as you imagine this childhood version of you, are you indoor or outdoor in the vision? What are you wearing? Did you land in a neutral space, a positive space, or a space that maybe feels a little sad or traumatic? Just notice where you landed when you imagine this childhood version of you. And regardless of where you landed, notice for a moment, what did this child version of you need most in their life? What did they need? And we're going to sing this song as a prayer and as an intention for that child inside of each of us who just wants to know that they are enough. This is I am enough. And the words of the chorus are I am enough, I am golden, baby. Yeah. And Greg, you're welcome to sing along. You want to mute yourself because it'll, have
Mhm.
the thing. Okay. Little boy, don't cry. You've been in pain enough. Um, Little girl, don't hide. You're finally safe enough. Um, One day I'll look into your eyes, show you you don't need to hide behind disguise. No. Spread your wings, you're terrified. Don't be afraid, you're born to fly. I'm by your side, yeah. I am enough, I am golden, baby. I am enough. That's the chorus. I am enough, I am enough. Oh, I am golden, baby. I am enough, I am enough. Ooh, oh, yeah. I am enough. I am enough. Oh, ooh, enough. I am enough. Oh, little girl, it's alright. You've taken the blame. Enough. No. Little boy, don't hide. You've been ashamed. Enough. One day I'll look into your eyes, show you you don't need to hide behind disguise. No. Spread your wings, you're terrified. Don't be afraid, you're born to fly. I'm by your side. Here we go. Say, I am enough. I am golden, baby. I am enough. I am enough. Feel free to sing along. I am enough. Oh, I am golden, baby. I am enough. I am enough. Oh, ooh, enough. I am enough. Oh, ooh, enough. I am enough. Oh, I am enough. I am golden, baby. I am enough. I am enough. Listen up. You are enough. You are golden, baby. You are enough. We're going to sing You Are Enough like we're singing to our childhood selves. Let's do it. You are enough. You are golden, baby. You are enough. You are enough. One more time. You are enough. You are golden, baby. You are enough. Last time. We're gonna go till we are enough. We are enough. We are golden, baby. We are enough. We are enough. We are enough. Oh, we are golden, baby. We are enough. We are enough. Oh, we are enough. We are golden, baby. We are enough. We are enough. Oh, we are enough. We are golden, baby. We are enough. We are enough. Last time, we are enough. Just take that as a prayer into your heart and just notice how you feel with those words as a mantra echoing through your sphere. I am enough. I am enough. You are enough. You are enough. We are enough. We are golden, baby.
We are golden, baby. Yes. Yes.
We are golden, baby. And this has been one of my quarantine projects. So before quarantine, this is coming with me on the arc. I did not know how to play guitar. I've been learning how to play guitar. Uh,
Truly.
yes, it's been so fun. I've been practicing a ton. So I've been learning how to play guitar for the last 3 months. And it's been such a cool experience to like be a beginner again and like learn to play my own music and all of that. So it's been fabulous.
That is pretty phenomenal. And you were phenomenal. Thank you for that. That was just so
Oh,
gorgeous and beautiful and juicy. And
thank you, Greg. Thank you,
oh my
Greg.
gosh. Did y'all feel it out there? Woo, boy. No, seriously. Yeah. I mean, like that really resonating, really, really touched. And it touched me. I'm sure it touched others.
I think those words, like for me, when I was writing them, little boy, don't cry. You've been in pain enough. Little girl, don't hide. You've been ashamed enough. And it just is. It seems like no matter how much we achieve, no matter how much we accomplish, no matter how much money we make, no matter how many spiritual practices we do, no matter how much we meditate, there's always that child inside of each of us, who just wants to know that they are enough. That they are enough, not for what they do, but for who they are. And so that message really for me, I'm always singing to the child in me, but also the child that I know is in each and every one of us.
Mhm. Mariana says, you're such a beautiful soul, Justin. Tim
Oh,
says, rock on.
oh, Tim! It's one of my best friends. I know who that is.
And Maribel says, beautiful song, message, and person. Thank you. Mariana also has 3 smiley faces with hearts in their eyes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So thank you,
amazing.
Mariana. And
Mariana. I think that's
Mariana,
somebody that I know as well. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, that's
beautiful.
beautiful.
Um,
Hmm.
and thank you, Barbara and Stephen and Catalin and Hilda. And I'll get to your comment.
Ah, somebody. Barbara's my mom.
Oh, hi, Barbara.
Assuming it's the right Barbara. That's my mama. Hi, mom. I
Hey,
love you.
son, love you, love
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. There we go.
Thank
That's
thank
mom.
you, Barbara. What does it feel like in your body when you perform and create?
To be very honest with you, um, I'm still anchoring. I'm still feeling into it and anchoring into my confidence. That's still a piece. Like I have only been singing for 6 years, and
Wow.
professionally at least, and to be then kind of like immediately put on these huge stages, there's that imposter syndrome and that inner critic that comes in, and
Oh,
so
yes, I get it.
for all of us, and so and it happens for all of us in different ways. It's interesting for me, like when I'm speaking, because I've been doing so much public speaking and stuff for years. I'm in such a state of flow, and even just now playing the guitar, like I'm like, oh, I'm messing up, blah, 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 and you just have to like let that pass through you and go through. And so it's a little battle between me and my inner critic most times when I'm performing, but I always at the end of it feel like each time that I do it, especially this playing guitar and singing, which is very new for me. I feel like I do it's very new for me. And uh, I have to just go, you are allowed to be where you are, and it is enough. And your inner critic, I always like to name it something separate, like, oh, my inner critic wants me to think that that wasn't good enough. My inner critic wants me to think that if it's not perfect, then people aren't going to like it. My inner critic wants me to think, but guess what? No, that's not where our decisions come from. And that's not where I've learned that that's not where my choices come from. And so often, I've been doing a lot of shadow work. And one of the biggest lessons for me in the last several years was like, so many people are like, how do I get rid of fear? How do I not be scared? How do I get rid of that inner critic voice? And I've recognized, I'm like, this inner critic, he's mean, he's terrible, but he's going to be with me for a very long time. And so it's just me learning how to relate to him and be on stage with him, and go, okay, so now what? And so, yeah, I offer that just so honestly, because I think we all have that in different spots in our lives,
Oh my
and to
God,
not feel
yes.
ashamed of it.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing how persistent and dynamic that inner critic voice is, right? For all of us. I mean, that's kind of it's really like a quantum amount of power, like nuclear energy. Sometimes it's very
Yeah.
potent, you know.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. It's knowing how to have a relationship and manage and work with that.
Yeah.
I think so key. So key. You know, you have a great book, "Stay Woke: A Meditation Guide for the Rest of Us." What was the impetus behind that, and what exactly do you mean by the quote unquote the rest of us?
Oh, it's so good. So yeah, when I wrote the book Stay Woke, actually, I'll start here. So with that question, the rest of us, because this is what a lot of people ask. They say, okay, and my publisher, so Sounds True is who published my book, which I'm sure a lot of people listening are familiar with. And my editor, Jennifer Brown, um, she asked me, she said, I need you to say who the rest of us are. Who is that? And I remember I was nervous because I was like, well, I don't want to leave people out. I don't, what does that mean? And so I'm going to read you just a little section. It's very
Yay!
short,
Great.
from page 3 of the book when I defined the rest of us. So it's right here. The book is very colorful and vibrant and bright and has pictures. And so this is on page 3. It says, for my Black brothers and sisters, this is for you. For my LGBTQIA plus brothers and sisters, this is for you. For my women who've had enough, this is for you. For my starving artists and workaholic creatives, this is for you. For my conscious entrepreneurs who want to make an impact, this is for you. For those who've been discriminated against for their otherness, this is for you. For my social justice warriors, this is for you. For my tree loving planet savers, this is for you. And for all people of color and everyone who is woke enough to understand why I'm even pointing that out in the first place. This is for you. But most importantly, this book is for us, for the people. And,
Whew.
I think we can find ourselves in there. I think we can find ourselves in there. And I don't have to say who it's not for, because that's not who I'm speaking to, but we can find ourselves there. And for me, it's not about one of those groups, because what's so important is the liberation of one of our groups. Janaea Future Khan said this, and I quoted her in the book. The liberation of one of our groups is essential to the liberation of all of us. And this is what we're experiencing right now with COVID. If one of our groups isn't well, none of us can be well.
Mhm.
And so for me, this is about us coming together and stay woke. The reason I wrote this book was obviously meditation's not new. I didn't create, none of the practices in there are new, but what's new about it is the context that I'm putting it in. And I think that's one of the most important questions that we as a spiritual community and as a conscious community can be asking right now, especially as we're looking to diversify our wellness and our spiritual community, is not just, oh, how do we get more Black people at Esalen? How do we get more? These are important questions, right, to ask, but I don't think it's the most important questions. The most important thing to me is, how do we take this content that has changed so many of our lives and put it into a new context,
Mhm.
for perspective on this. When I speak today, I'm getting ready to do a talk later today for the San Bernardino School District, and it's 70% Latino. And the first thing before I say anything about meditation that I have to talk about is about meditation and the Bible, and about that, how it fits with Christianity and Catholicism. Because if they think that these practices are worshiping the devil, which is what most Christian and Catholic people think, honestly, in every community I go to, then I can teach them the best practices in the world and they're not going to land. And so we have to think, okay, what context does this need to be put in so that it can meet people where they are in their lives, instead of trying to fit our frame of what we think it's supposed to look like on them. And so that's why I wrote the book, to pull things into very specific contexts for social justice and activism and environmentalism and change, and internal change as well. So
Beautiful. Beautiful. And that's a really great discernment that you just issued, putting it into different contexts. Someone asked, how has the COVID-19 situation altered your book tour, which I would imagine
Yeah.
favorably, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't know. It has definitely altered it. But so the reason I don't know is because we don't know yet. At first, we said, oh, we're going to start up again in the fall. And we don't know if we can start up again in the fall because we don't know if they're going to be allowing groups that big to get together, in the fall. So once I know, I'll have an update. But the intention is as soon as it will continue. And as soon as in-person large gatherings of groups start again, the tour will begin again. And in the meantime, we actually are piloting a virtual tour. So, as a part of my tour, I was going to high schools and colleges and underprivileged communities and then doing a big community event afterwards. And so today, in an hour and a half, actually, I'm doing a virtual assembly for San Bernardino High School, 1,700 students, and teaching them to meditate and giving them this 40-day audio program because we can't give them books. We were surprising them all and giving them books when we were in person. And then in the evening, I'm doing a virtual event for the San Bernardino whole school district for families. And so we're going to see how this goes and how this lands today. And if it goes well, which I think it will, then we're going to do some more virtual events. But just please know, for those of you asking, it is my commitment that I will definitely be in person with you again if and when the universe allows that. So,
That's beautiful. I have a question. I'm curious. What have you experienced when you go in and you teach people to meditate, especially
oh,
youth? What is that
yeah,
like?
they are so ready for it. They're so ready for it. They just need someone to talk to them in a way that they can relate to. That's it. They need someone who gets them, and that has been the biggest blessing for me. Like when I look at my role in the lineage of mindfulness and meditation as a teacher, and like part of like what me as an ancestor, what I'm supposed to be doing, is I recognize that, like, when I go up and talk to these kids, first of all, they think I'm a lot younger than I am, right? They think I'm like 23 or something like that. They're always shocked. And I'm queer and I'm black, and I talk very freely like this with them, and I play music and they meditate with music, and we do this whole thing teaching them. And they always afterwards go, oh my God, I didn't know meditation could be so fun. And I think that's the thing, is it can be, depending on how you want to approach it. Obviously, there's many different styles, and some of them are quite boring, if you ask me. But I think there are many different styles. And and for me, this is the thing. Going into these communities, I'll tell you one story. A few months ago, I was in Southside Chicago teaching to a group of 56 women who had each lost a child from gun violence.
Mm.
And they were age range between 30 and 70. And this group of women had come together. And so I had a day with them. And this shows you the bubble that we live in. This is a few months ago, okay, 2020. Actually, it was 2019, I think. I walked in the room and I started the talk and I said, I have a question. How many of you have ever heard about meditation? And only half of the room raised their hand.
Mm.
How many of you have ever heard of it? Like, not practiced it, not done it, even heard of it. And that seems mind blowing to probably everybody watching, right? Like, you've never heard of meditation. That's the real world, right? When we're not in our spiritual echo chamber. And
Mm.
then the second question I asked them, this is a group of almost all Black women. I said, how many of you who've heard of meditation think that meditation is worshiping the devil? Another half of them raised their hands. And I said, tell me what you know. They said, well, it's worshiping all these statues, and there's only one Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and blah, blah. All this propaganda that's been given to them about meditation doesn't have to be accurate, depending on where it's coming from, right? Depending on what lineage you're coming through. And so for me, what I experience when I'm teaching people is they are ready and hungry for these practices, but they need somebody to talk to them about the practices in a way that fits with their life. And once they have that, there's this beautiful opening. So what I say to people, just because I've been talking about it a bunch, around the prayer and God and, meditation and all this, what I always say is, first of all, when I was a kid and I started meditating, my grandma, my baka, and my mom who's on here, they literally tried to have an intervention with me because they thought I joined a cult. They
Mm.
literally thought I joined a cult and tried to have an intervention. And like, you would think I was like, had sold my soul to somebody, because I was starting to use words like the universe and, like all this kind of stuff. And what I say to everyone is that prayer is, if you're religious or spiritual, doesn't have to be for everybody, but prayer is when you're speaking to your source of higher power, and meditation is when you're listening to that higher power speaking back to you. And all through the Bible and all through every spirit, there's so much about, be still and know and all this kind of stuff. And we all get so much practice asking, praying, show me the way. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. But so few of us have any practice listening to the whispers. And so when I say it that way, their eyes light up. And usually in the room, I get like a amen, something like that. Okay. And it opens. And so anyway, I can go on and on about the stories of teaching with people in different communities, but it's such a blessing and such an honor and a privilege that I don't take for granted.
Yeah, that's really powerful. That is really powerful. Just soaking that in. Um, mm. Yeah, in fact, Tanita, thank you for tuning in, says powerful. Excellent.
Oh, thank you, Tanita.
Yeah, thank you. So, Justin, what brings you a sense of wonder and awe?
Esalen.
Excellent.
Oh, I cannot.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, well, I was curious. Is there a particular spot at Esalen
Yep.
that really you were like, "Whoa, I'm home within myself"?
Yep.
You know.
Yep. Oh, you know what? I can probably, will it let me share my screen? Can I show it to you? Can I show you my spot?
I think you can.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to
I
try.
think you can share
Give
your
me a
screen.
millisecond. So I'll tell you this story while I'm pulling this up at the same time, if it allows me to. My friend Tim, who's watching, took this picture of me. So I have, like I told you, been coming to Esalen since I was very young. And uh, here we go. Here it comes. So there's a spot that I always sit every single time I go. And this spot is where I have read many books, but most significantly, it's the spot where I wrote my book proposal. I wrote most of my book, a lot of my book, and did the final edits on my book. I'm about to share it right now. So, can you see it?
Yes. Yes.
So, that is me with all the draft pages of my book, and a crystal and the little salt shaker to keep it down from the wind and the sun setting. And my friend took this, and that is one of my favorite spots on the entire planet Earth, to sit right there with the whole community of Esalen behind and looking at the ocean and seeing the little otters playing. And it is my dream, to be able to be back on that campus soon, which I'm supposed to be in August if all goes well, teaching, and then again later. And really, Greg, it's really my vision, and I think it's many of our vision that we hold at Esalen, to bring just such a diverse group of people of all identities and ethnicities and sexual orientations and ages together there on that campus to experience the wonder and the awe of Esalen. So
Mm.
that is my most awe-inspiring spot. I sit there every single time I come.
I love that. What crystal is that?
That was an amethyst.
Yeah, this is I think yellow obsidian or something. Yeah,
Oh, there we
good
go.
in sunlight as well. But it's a beautiful photo. Yeah, I think many of us
Thank you.
know that spot well if you've been to Esalen, and if you don't now, you see it and you know it. And there's more pictures on our website as well at esalen.org. The workshops Justin was referring to are the Art of Science and Mindfulness, Compassion, and Awe. That's August 19th through 14th. And then the Making of the Modern Elder, October 30th through November 1st. So um, check out our website to learn more about those. We're going to wrap up in a little bit here, but Justin, you may have mentioned this during our conversation already, but how are you expanding your human potential now, these days?
Mm. I think so many of the ways that I've described, but I'm going to tell you one of the things that's coming up for me a lot right now is this idea that we can learn to care about things. And I've recognized this, and that might sound obvious to some people and might sound like, well, what exactly do you mean? So, just like I'm learning to play guitar, and you can learn how to do many things in your life, people often think that caring is like this virtue that has to come like naturally to you about certain things. But we can actually learn and cultivate our capacity to care about people, about each other, about people who are unlike us, about the environment. And the way that this recently got shown to me is, I've always been that person in my family who is absent. I mean, I'm present over the phone, and whatever, but like I'm the one who moved away from home at young. I'm the one who's traveling. I'm always been super busy. And I have three young nieces, Malia, Madden, and Nalea. And Malia is 3. And over this quarantine time, I've had the absolute privilege of being able to FaceTime with her almost every single day. And before, like a FaceTime from uncle was like special and rare. And I've been talking to her every day and being able to be this like present, very consistent, present, stable, reliable male in her life, one of them. And I've recognized how much I care to even be that in her life, which I didn't know that. Like before I didn't think about it. Like I was like, I'm her uncle, it's fine. But now I have this deep sense of care and responsibility and love that has gone in a deeper level for my young nieces. And that just showed me like, wow, we can learn to care more. And it's not this thing that has to magically happen. It's where our attention goes, right? We start to care about things more. And so anyway, that's one way that I've been expanding in a way that isn't over functioning and overachieving and doing more. It's about being more with my family and with the things that matter most to me.
Mm, I love that. I love that. I'm curious, what makes you laugh most?
Okay, so I have been loving, I don't know about you guys, but I have been loving the humor that has been coming out of this COVID situation on Instagram and online. Like the funny videos people are making and little memes that people are making. I think the first one was this like video of Cardi B saying coronavirus, like, and just this whole thing that turned into a remix. And so I've been cracking up at the way that people are finding humor in this time. And some people go, "Oh, this is not a time to joke about." Mm-mm. The way that most people, especially marginalized people, have gotten through history, this trauma of our history in the United States, is by finding joy in the middle of it. And so I think that those moments give me so much levity. My favorite moments online have not been the deep talks and all these things. I've loved those, but my favorite moments have been the silly videos and the moments of laughter that have come from this situation. So that's what makes me giggle the most right now.
Yeah, I hear you. I think I've become very obsessed with this golden retriever named Tucker.
Oh
That
my gosh.
some beautiful person in, I don't know, in the Midwest owns. I don't know how it came up on my Facebook feed or Instagram, but it is like this dog has a presence.
Yeah.
So shout out to Tucker wherever you are. I mean,
Hey, Tucker.
he's well groomed and he's very well behaved. He's like a dog actor. I don't know how they did that, but he's like over 1 million followers anyway. But yeah, I get what
Wow.
you're saying. I mean, I'm finding a lot of levity. I mean, somehow it just comes up, and I'm just like, wow, Tucker has a really great life, and
Yeah.
he's really being followed. It's like really cool. It's
Yeah.
yeah, those are kind of neat moments because we need to we need to discover the joy during times of uncertainty and
Yeah.
whatnot, right? So
And that's
just
and that's
what?
one thing, like I think, sorry, Greg. I was just gonna say it's one thing that in our spiritual community, our conscious community, I think it's something that, especially as I'm teaching in other communities, that I think we can use a little more of, like a little more joy, like a little more, just to
Yeah.
play a little bit more. And not that everybody is not that, but I think infusing that into our wellness world is going to be what's essential in bringing more people in because it's there.
Yeah, I hear you. I think transformation has a sense of humor.
Totally.
Yeah, yeah. It has to. It's like, come on, you can do it. All right. So one last question for you. What's the most interesting thing you've been learning about yourself lately?
Oh gosh, okay, I've shared so many things. I feel like I've answered this question 3 times, but I think
Okay.
well, I'm thinking like the caring and the guitar and this, but
Mhm.
I'll tell you this, just to echo, is I'm having a deeper and deeper learning and understanding that even though I've known this consciously, but I'm knowing it more in my heart now, is that I am enough not for what I achieve or do, but for who I am being. How I am showing up as a being in every moment, whether it's talking to my family or being here with you or anything else that's happening. Who I am is what matters the most, more than what I'm doing. And I've always known that, and it's in my book and I teach it. But I think given this time now, it's been so present for me, and I want to make sure that I pass that message on to everybody else as well.
Mm, I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. Justin, thank you so much for joining us today and really and sharing your heart, your soul, your music, your creativity, both with music and reading the book. Lisa says amen, 2 exclamation points, by the way.
Amen, girl.
Amen. Amen. So, folks, thank you for joining us for the Esalen interview. We do these every Thursdays around 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Check out our Facebook page to keep track of what's going on. Next week we have Mirabai Bush, and she'll talk about Ram Dass and her unique relationship with Ram Dass and friendship throughout the years before his passing. Keep track of Justin and all that he is doing at justinmichaelwilliams.com. And I'm sure you're on Instagram and Facebook.
Yep.
What is your Instagram handle?
My Instagram is at we just will. And also, if people want, because I talked a lot about the work that's happening with youth, if people want to see and track what's happening with the high schools and stuff around the country, that's at staywokegiveback.org. That's staywokegiveback.org.
Beautiful. And folks, stay connected with us at esalen.org/learn. If you go into community connections, we have many blogs and so many things in there now for all of us during this unique time during the pandemic. And as we emerge through it and beyond it at some point, know that you remain in our hearts. We thank you for joining us here. And for anyone that has any additional questions about anything, please leave a little post on our Facebook page. And we'll see you very soon. Justin, thank you so much for joining us.
It's an honor, Greg. Thank you so much, brother, for hosting this and all that you do. I'm so grateful to have been here with you and with everybody watching today. Much love.
Much love to all. Be well, folks. We'll see you next time. I'm Greg Archer.